Question 1. Upon reviewing the results of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, a prospective student believes there was a significant error in the grading of their essay component. They feel their score does not accurately reflect their performance and are concerned this will jeopardize their admission. The student is considering several ways to address this perceived discrepancy. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for students at Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University? Option A. Initiate a public social media campaign criticizing the exam's fairness and demanding a grade adjustment, threatening to expose perceived flaws to a wider audience. Option B. Contact individual faculty members involved in the exam administration directly, expressing dissatisfaction with the score and requesting a personal review outside of the official channels. Option C. Accept the grade as final and withdraw their application, assuming the university's assessment is infallible and there is no recourse. Option D. Formally submit a written request for a re-evaluation of the essay component through the university's designated academic appeals process, clearly outlining the specific reasons for the perceived error and providing any supporting evidence. The correct answer is D. Formally submit a written request for a re-evaluation of the essay component through the university's designated academic appeals process, clearly outlining the specific reasons for the perceived error and providing any supporting evidence. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam for Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University is governed by specific regulations and guidelines designed to ensure a level playing field and uphold the value of its degrees. Navigating this situation requires a thorough understanding of these regulations, particularly those pertaining to academic misconduct and the proper handling of appeals or requests for review. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established procedures for grade appeals and academic review as outlined by Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University. This means formally submitting a request for review through the designated channels, providing clear and concise reasons for the appeal, and respecting the timeline and requirements set by the university. This approach is correct because it aligns with the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that all students have an opportunity to have their concerns addressed within the established academic framework. It upholds the university's regulations by following the prescribed process for challenging assessment outcomes, thereby maintaining the integrity of the examination system. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to bypass the formal appeal process by directly contacting faculty members outside of the official channels to lobby for a grade change. This fails to respect the university's established procedures and could be seen as an attempt to exert undue influence, undermining the fairness of the assessment process. It violates the spirit of academic governance and could lead to accusations of attempting to circumvent regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to threaten negative publicity or social media campaigns if the grade is not adjusted. This is ethically unsound and potentially damaging to the university's reputation. It constitutes an attempt to coerce a decision rather than seeking a fair review based on academic merit, and it directly contravenes the university's policies on academic conduct and the ethical responsibilities of students. A further incorrect approach would be to accept the grade without any attempt at review, despite believing there was a significant error. While this avoids conflict, it fails to advocate for oneself within the established system and misses an opportunity to ensure the accuracy of the assessment, potentially impacting future academic opportunities. It does not engage with the university's regulatory framework for addressing student concerns. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the core issue, a perceived error in assessment. 2. Consulting relevant regulations, understanding the university's policies on grade appeals, academic integrity, and student conduct. 3. Following established procedures, utilizing the formal channels for submitting appeals or requests for review. 4. Maintaining professional conduct, communicating respectfully and providing evidence-based arguments. 5. Seeking clarification. If unsure about procedures, contacting the appropriate university department for guidance. Question 2. The assessment process reveals that a candidate, upon completion of a recent examination administered by Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University, has approached the invigilator requesting to review their examination paper immediately after the session, citing a desire to understand specific areas for future improvement. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator? Strictly adhering to Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University's examination regulations. Option A. Inform the candidate that reviewing examination papers after the assessment is not permitted under university policy, and explain that all materials are handled according to established procedures for secure storage and eventual archival or destruction. Option B. Advise the candidate to submit a formal request to the dean's office for access to their examination paper without confirming whether such access is possible. Option C. Provide the candidate with a general overview of common areas of difficulty in the examination without showing them their specific paper. Option D. Allow the candidate to review their examination paper under supervision to facilitate their learning, as the examination period has concluded for that specific paper. The correct answer is A. Inform the candidate that reviewing examination papers after the assessment is not permitted under university policy, and explain that all materials are handled according to established procedures for secure storage and eventual archival or destruction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the university's commitment to fair and transparent assessment. The candidate's request, while seemingly minor, touches upon the established procedures for handling examination materials and the potential for undue influence or bias. Navigating this requires a thorough understanding of Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's internal regulations regarding examination conduct and candidate support. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the university's established protocol for managing examination queries and candidate requests. This means acknowledging the candidate's request, but explaining that such a request cannot be accommodated outside of the formal examination process. The university's regulations likely stipulate that all examination materials remain under controlled conditions until the official examination period concludes and are handled according to specific archival or destruction procedures. Allowing a candidate to review materials post-exam, even if they claim it's for personal learning, could set a precedent, compromise the integrity of future assessments, and potentially violate data privacy or intellectual property guidelines if the materials contain sensitive information. The university's commitment to fairness dictates that all candidates are assessed under the same conditions, and post-exam access to materials by individual candidates is not a standard provision. An incorrect approach would be to grant the candidate's request to review the examination paper. This fails to uphold the principle of equal treatment for all candidates, as other students would not have had this opportunity. It also risks compromising the security and confidentiality of the examination materials, which are intended for a specific assessment period. Furthermore, it bypasses the established administrative channels for handling such requests, potentially leading to inconsistencies in how similar situations are managed in the future. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the candidate's request outright without providing a clear explanation based on university policy. While the request cannot be granted, a complete lack of communication or a dismissive attitude can lead to dissatisfaction and a perception of unfairness. A professional response requires clear communication of the reasons for the decision, referencing the relevant university guidelines. The professional decision-making process in such situations involves 1. Understanding the candidate's request and its implications. 2. Consulting the relevant Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University regulations concerning examination conduct, material handling, and candidate support. 3. Prioritizing the principles of academic integrity, fairness, and transparency. 4. Communicating the decision clearly and respectfully to the candidate, explaining the rationale based on university policy. 5. Escalating the request to the appropriate university department or faculty if there is ambiguity in the regulations, or if a policy exception is being considered, though exceptions are generally discouraged in assessment matters. Question 3. The assessment process reveals that during a critical section of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, a candidate encounters a question with wording that appears to have a potential ambiguity. The candidate has a limited time remaining and is unsure of the intended meaning. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to the principles of academic integrity and the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. The candidate skips the question entirely, assuming it is a poorly formulated question that may be disregarded by the examiners. Option B. The candidate whispers to a nearby candidate to ask for their interpretation of the ambiguous wording. Option C. The candidate discreetly raises their hand to signal the invigilator and politely requests clarification on the specific wording of the question. Option D. The candidate interprets the question based on their best guess of the intended meaning and proceeds to answer it to avoid losing time. The correct answer is C. The candidate discreetly raises their hand to signal the invigilator and politely requests clarification on the specific wording of the question. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a candidate's potential strengths and weaknesses in understanding the core principles of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's regulatory framework. The challenge lies in identifying the candidate's ability to apply these principles ethically and effectively in a simulated academic context, rather than merely recalling them. A deep understanding requires not just knowledge of the rules, but also the judgment to act in accordance with them when faced with ambiguity or pressure. The correct approach involves a candidate demonstrating a commitment to academic integrity by proactively seeking clarification on any perceived ambiguities in the exam instructions or content. This aligns with the fundamental principle of fairness and transparency inherent in university entrance examinations, ensuring all candidates are assessed on a level playing field. Specifically, the university's examination regulations, as outlined in the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University Student Admission Directives, emphasize the importance of candidates understanding and adhering to all instructions. Seeking clarification is a direct manifestation of this adherence, preventing potential misunderstandings that could lead to an unfair assessment or a violation of examination rules. An incorrect approach of ignoring a potentially ambiguous instruction and proceeding based on personal interpretation is a direct violation of the principle of adherence to examination directives. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a potential disregard for the established rules, which could be construed as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage or a failure to engage with the assessment process responsibly. Such an action undermines the integrity of the examination and the candidate's suitability for academic pursuits. Another incorrect approach of discussing the ambiguity with other candidates during the exam is a clear breach of examination conduct rules. This constitutes an act of collusion or seeking unauthorized assistance, which is strictly prohibited by the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University Examination Integrity Policy. This action not only compromises the individual assessment of each candidate, but also severely damages the credibility of the entire examination process. A third incorrect approach of assuming the ambiguity is intentional and attempting to infer the examiner's intent without seeking clarification is speculative and unprofessional. While critical thinking is valued, it must be applied within the established procedural boundaries. This approach bypasses the established channels for resolving uncertainty, potentially leading to an incorrect response based on flawed assumptions, and failing to uphold the principle of clear communication and adherence to instructions. The professional decision-making process for such situations involves prioritizing adherence to established rules and procedures. When faced with ambiguity, the first step should always be to consult the provided instructions. If clarification is still needed, to utilize the designated channels for seeking it, such as raising a hand to ask the invigilator. This ensures that actions are taken with full awareness of the rules and with the aim of maintaining fairness and integrity. Question 4. Examination of the data shows a candidate for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam has presented a document that appears to be a valid form of identification, but is not explicitly listed in the university's official list of accepted identification documents for the exam. The candidate insists it is a legitimate form of identification. What is the most appropriate course of action for the examination proctor? Option A. Accept the document as valid based on the candidate's assertion of its legitimacy to avoid causing undue stress to the applicant. Option B. Allow the candidate to sit for the examination after verifying the document's authenticity through a quick online search and noting the discrepancy. Option C. Contact the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University Entrance Exam Administration immediately to seek clarification on how to proceed with this specific type of identification document. Option D. Deny the candidate entry to the examination and inform them to return with an officially accepted form of identification, as per the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University Entrance Exam Regulations. The correct answer is B. Allow the candidate to sit for the examination after verifying the document's authenticity through a quick online search and noting the discrepancy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's academic mission and the need to adhere strictly to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the exam's specific rules to a novel situation not explicitly covered, requiring a judgment call that balances fairness to the candidate with the integrity of the examination process. The university must uphold the established procedures to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exams, official regulations, and guidelines. If the situation is not explicitly addressed, the university should consult the examination board or designated authority responsible for interpreting and enforcing these rules. This ensures that any decision made is consistent with the spirit and letter of the regulations, maintaining the exam's validity and fairness. The regulatory justification is rooted in the principle of procedural fairness and adherence to established examination protocols, which are designed to prevent bias and ensure equal opportunity for all candidates. An incorrect approach would be to make an arbitrary decision based on personal discretion, without consulting the official regulations or the examination board. This risks violating the exam's established procedures, potentially leading to accusations of unfairness or favoritism, and undermining the credibility of the entrance examination. Another incorrect approach would be to apply rules from other university entrance exams or general academic policies that are not specific to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific jurisdictional requirements and could lead to a decision that is not legally or regulatorily sound within the context of this particular exam. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the specific regulation or guideline that applies or is in question. 2. Consulting the official documentation for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam to find explicit guidance. 3. If ambiguity exists, seeking clarification from the designated examination authority or board. 4. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final decision. 5. Communicating the decision clearly and transparently to all relevant parties. Question 5. Assessment of the risk of bias in the university entrance examination process. A faculty member discovers that their nephew has applied for admission to a program where the faculty member is part of the assessment committee. The faculty member is aware of the university's internal regulations regarding conflicts of interest and the importance of objective evaluation of all candidates. What is the most appropriate risk mitigation strategy? Option A. Faculty member should discreetly inform their colleagues on the committee about the relationship and recuse themselves from evaluating their nephew's application. Option B. The faculty member should proceed with the assessment as usual, believing their professional integrity will prevent any bias. Option C. The faculty member should delegate the assessment of their nephew's application to a junior colleague without disclosing the relationship. Option D. The faculty member should subtly advocate for their nephew's application among committee members, emphasizing their nephew's potential. The correct answer is A. The faculty member should discreetly inform their colleagues on the committee about the relationship and recuse themselves from evaluating their nephew's application. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure the integrity of the university's admissions process. Adhering strictly to Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's internal regulations and the overarching principles of fairness and transparency in higher education admissions. The pressure to admit a relative, coupled with the responsibility of assessing applications, necessitates a robust risk assessment framework to prevent undue influence and maintain impartiality. The correct approach involves proactively identifying the conflict of interest and recusing oneself from the assessment process for the applicant in question. This aligns with ethical principles of impartiality and the university's likely internal guidelines on conflicts of interest, which would mandate disclosure and withdrawal from decision-making when a personal relationship could compromise objectivity. By stepping aside, the individual upholds the integrity of the admissions process and avoids any perception of favoritism. thereby protecting both their professional reputation and the university's standing. An incorrect approach of proceeding with the assessment without disclosure or recusal would constitute a significant ethical failure. It violates the fundamental principle of fairness in admissions and creates a direct conflict of interest, potentially leading to a biased evaluation. This could result in the admission of a less qualified candidate over more deserving ones, undermining the academic standards of Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University. Furthermore, such an action would likely contravene internal university policies designed to prevent conflicts of interest and ensure equitable treatment of all applicants. Another incorrect approach of attempting to subtly influence colleagues to favor the applicant, even if not directly involved in the final decision, is also professionally unacceptable. This circumvents the spirit of ethical conduct and attempts to manipulate the process indirectly. It demonstrates a lack of integrity and a willingness to compromise the fairness of admissions for personal reasons, which is a serious breach of professional responsibility and university regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear framework. First, identify any potential conflicts of interest arising from personal relationships or external pressures. Second, consult the relevant university policies and ethical guidelines regarding conflicts of interest and admissions procedures. Third, if a conflict is identified, proactively disclose it to the appropriate authority, e.g., admissions committee chair, department head, and recuse oneself from any decision-making or assessment related to the applicant. Finally, prioritize the integrity and fairness of the process above personal considerations. Question 6. Which approach would be most appropriate for an international applicant to Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University to ensure their application for the entrance exam is compliant with Turkish higher education regulations regarding documentation and equivalency? Option A. Submitting all academic documents with unofficial translations and assuming the university will verify their authenticity and equivalency. Option B. Proactively obtaining official translations and notarizations for all required academic documents and seeking official equivalency confirmation from the Turkish Council of Higher Education (YÖRK) or the University for Foreign Qualifications, while meticulously cross-referencing all requirements with the university's official admission guidelines. Option C. Providing a personal statement explaining any discrepancies in documentation and hoping for leniency from the admissions committee. Option D. Submitting only the most recent academic transcript and a diploma, assuming that older documents are not relevant for the entrance exam application. The correct answer is A. Submitting all academic documents with unofficial translations and assuming the university will verify their authenticity and equivalency. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a prospective student applying to Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University. The challenge lies in navigating the university's admission requirements and ensuring that all submitted documentation accurately reflects their academic standing and personal details, while adhering to the specific regulations governing university entrance in Turkey. Misrepresenting information, even unintentionally, can lead to severe consequences, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential future academic repercussions. Careful judgment is required to ensure full compliance and integrity in the application process. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing the Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University's official admission guidelines and the relevant Turkish higher education regulations. This includes understanding the specific documentation required for international applicants, such as transcripts, diplomas, language proficiency certificates, and any equivalency documents. It also necessitates accurately translating and notarizing documents as per the university's instructions and Turkish legal requirements. This approach is correct because it prioritizes transparency, accuracy, and adherence to the established legal and regulatory framework for university admissions in Turkey. It demonstrates a commitment to academic integrity and respect for the university's admission process, aligning with the principles of honesty and due diligence expected of all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to submit documents that are not officially translated or notarized, or to provide information that is inconsistent with official records. This would be a failure to comply with the specific documentation requirements stipulated by Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University and Turkish law, which mandate verified and accurate submissions. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that equivalent documents from another country are automatically acceptable without seeking official equivalency confirmation from the relevant Turkish authorities or the university itself. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific recognition processes for foreign qualifications within the Turkish higher education system, and a failure to proactively address potential discrepancies. A further incorrect approach would be to omit any required documents, believing they are not essential or that the university will overlook their absence. This directly violates the explicit instructions provided by the university and disregards the importance of a complete application package as defined by the regulatory framework. Professionals in similar situations should adopt a systematic decision-making process. This involves first identifying all applicable regulations and guidelines from the target institution and the governing national bodies. Second, they should meticulously cross-reference these requirements with their own qualifications and documentation. Third, they must proactively seek clarification from the university or relevant authorities for any ambiguities or unique circumstances. Finally, they should ensure all submitted materials are accurate, complete, and compliant with all legal and institutional mandates before submission. Question 7. Implementation of a new digital system for managing applicant documents for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam has led to a situation where some international applicants have submitted scanned copies of their high school diplomas that appear to be from institutions not recognized by the Turkish Ministry of National Education. The admissions committee is under pressure to process applications quickly before the exam date. Which of the following actions best upholds the regulatory framework and ethical standards for university admissions in Turkey? Option A. Reject all applications with scanned diplomas from potentially unrecognized institutions without further investigation to maintain strict adherence to perceived standards. Option B. Proceed with accepting these applications, assuming the scanned diplomas are legitimate, to avoid delaying the admissions process and to accommodate international applicants. Option C. Flag these applications for immediate verification by the university's International Relations Office, which will liaise with the Turkish Ministry of National Education or relevant Turkish consulates to authenticate the diplomas before proceeding with the application. Option D. Request the applicants to submit original hard copies of their diplomas via mail, understanding that this may cause significant delays and potentially lead to some applicants missing the exam. The correct answer is B. Proceed with accepting these applications, assuming the scanned diplomas are legitimate, to avoid delaying the admissions process and to accommodate international applicants. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions, ensuring the integrity of the entrance examination process while managing the logistical complexities of candidate registration and verification. The Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations, as per the established framework for Turkish higher education admissions, place a significant emphasis on fair and transparent evaluation. The core challenge lies in balancing the need for thorough verification of applicant credentials with the practical constraints of processing a large volume of applications within a defined timeframe. Any deviation from established procedures could lead to accusations of unfairness, compromise the validity of the exam results, or even lead to legal challenges. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process for verifying all submitted documents against official records. This includes cross-referencing applicant information with national identification databases and ensuring that any equivalency documents for international applicants are authenticated by the relevant Turkish authorities. This meticulous verification process is mandated by the Yüksekörgredim Kurulu (YÖRK) regulations, which govern university admissions in Turkey. Adhering to these regulations ensures that only eligible candidates participate in the entrance exam, upholding the principle of equal opportunity and academic merit. This approach minimizes the risk of fraudulent applications and maintains the credibility of the university's admission standards. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the verification of certain documents, such as assuming the authenticity of foreign high school diplomas without proper authentication. This directly violates YOMLAUT-K guidelines that require all foreign educational credentials to be recognized and validated by the Turkish Ministry of National Education or equivalent bodies. Another incorrect approach would be to accept incomplete application packages without a clear policy for follow-up or rejection, which contravenes the principle of standardized application procedures and could lead to arbitrary decision-making. Finally, relying solely on self-declaration of qualifications without any form of independent verification is a significant ethical and regulatory failure, as it opens the door to misrepresentation and undermines the integrity of the entire admission process. Professionals tasked with managing university entrance exams should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to regulatory mandates, ethical conduct, and procedural fairness. This involves understanding the specific requirements of the YOUMLAUT-K and the internal policies of Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University. When faced with potential shortcuts or ambiguities, the professional should always err on the side of caution and rigorous adherence to established protocols. Documenting all verification steps and decisions is crucial for accountability and transparency. In cases of doubt, seeking clarification from senior administrative bodies or legal counsel within the university is a responsible course of action. Question 8. The performance metrics show a significant dip in the pass rate for a core undergraduate course, potentially impacting departmental funding and faculty evaluations. As the course instructor, you are aware that some students have engaged in minor instances of academic misconduct, such as improper citation, which were not formally addressed due to time constraints. You are also aware that the current grading rubric, if strictly applied, might be perceived as overly demanding by some students, contributing to the lower pass rate. You are considering whether to adjust the grading rubric retroactively or to overlook the minor academic misconduct to improve the pass rate and meet the performance metrics. Option A. Focus solely on improving the pass rate by implementing a new, less rigorous grading rubric for future iterations of the course, without addressing past instances of misconduct. Option B. Discuss the grading rubric and the observed pass rate with the department head and seek guidance on how to uphold academic integrity while addressing student performance concerns. Option C. Strictly adhere to the existing grading rubric and formally address all instances of academic misconduct according to university policy, regardless of the impact on performance metrics. Option D. Retroactively adjust the grading rubric to be more lenient and overlook minor instances of academic misconduct to improve the pass rate and meet the performance metrics. Correct answer is C. Strictly adhere to the existing grading rubric and formally address all instances of academic misconduct according to university policy, regardless of the impact on performance metrics. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical obligations of academic integrity and fair evaluation. The pressure to meet performance metrics can lead to compromising established academic standards, creating a conflict between institutional goals and the principles of equitable assessment. Careful judgment is required to navigate this conflict without undermining the credibility of the university or the fairness to students. The correct approach involves a commitment to upholding the established academic integrity policies and the principles of fair evaluation, even when faced with pressure to achieve specific performance metrics. This means resisting the temptation to manipulate grading criteria or to overlook academic misconduct. The justification lies in the fundamental ethical duty of educators to provide a fair and accurate assessment of student learning, which is essential for maintaining the value of the degree and the reputation of the institution. Adhering to university regulations regarding academic honesty and fair grading ensures that all students are evaluated on their merits, fostering an environment of trust and respect. An incorrect approach would be to alter grading thresholds or introduce subjective criteria to inflate pass rates. This fails to meet the ethical obligation of fair evaluation and violates the principle of academic integrity by misrepresenting student achievement. It undermines the credibility of the university's assessment process and devalues the qualifications of its graduates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore instances of academic misconduct to avoid the administrative burden of investigation or the potential for negative student feedback. This is ethically unacceptable as it condones dishonesty and creates an unfair advantage for those who cheat while penalizing honest students. It also violates the university's regulations on academic integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize meeting performance metrics by focusing solely on easily quantifiable outcomes, even if these do not fully reflect a student's learning or potential. This is ethically problematic because it reduces education to a numbers game, potentially neglecting the development of critical thinking, creativity, and other essential skills that are harder to measure but crucial for a well-rounded education. It also fails to uphold the university's broader mission of fostering intellectual growth. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical conflict. Recognize the tension between institutional pressures and professional responsibilities. 2. Consulting relevant regulations and policies. Thoroughly review the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's academic integrity policies, grading guidelines, and any specific directives related to performance metrics. 3. Prioritizing ethical principles. Uphold the fundamental principles of fairness, honesty, and academic integrity above immediate institutional pressures. 4. Seeking guidance. If the situation is complex or unclear, consult with academic advisors, department heads, or the university's ethics committee. 5. Documenting decisions. Maintain clear records of the decision-making process and the rationale behind any actions taken. Question 9. During the evaluation of an applicant's submitted academic transcripts for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, the admissions committee discovers a significant discrepancy between the reported GPA on the application form and the GPA indicated on the official transcript provided by the applicant's previous institution. The applicant has also submitted a letter from their former school principal stating that the GPA was adjusted due to a clerical error. Which of the following actions best reflects the appropriate regulatory and ethical approach? Option A. Immediately reject the application due to the discrepancy, as all submitted information must be accurate and verifiable without exception. Option B. Accept the applicant's explanation and the principal's letter at face value, and proceed with the evaluation based on the adjusted GPA to avoid delaying the admissions process. Option C. Initiate a formal verification process by directly contacting the applicant's previous institution to confirm the accuracy of the transcript and the reported GPA, while temporarily placing the application on hold. Option D. Overlook the discrepancy, assuming it is a minor clerical issue, and proceed with the evaluation to ensure a smooth and efficient admissions cycle. Correct answer is A. Immediately reject the application due to the discrepancy, as all submitted information must be accurate and verifiable without exception. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a candidate's desire to present their qualifications favorably and the university's requirement for accurate and verifiable information. The pressure to gain admission can lead to misrepresentation, making it crucial for the admissions committee to adhere strictly to established protocols and ethical guidelines. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine qualifications and fabricated claims, ensuring fairness to all applicants and upholding the academic integrity of Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University. The correct approach involves a thorough verification process that aligns with the university's stated admission criteria and the principles of academic honesty. This includes cross-referencing submitted documents with official records and, where necessary, seeking clarification from the issuing institutions. This method is ethically sound and legally compliant with Turkish higher education regulations, which emphasize truthfulness in application processes. It ensures that admission decisions are based on merit and accurate representation, preventing unfair advantages. An incorrect approach that involves accepting self-reported achievements without independent verification fails to uphold the principle of academic integrity. This can lead to admitting unqualified students, undermining the university's reputation, and potentially creating an environment where dishonesty is tolerated. Such an approach would violate the spirit of fair competition and the regulatory expectations for transparent admissions. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss an application solely based on a minor discrepancy without allowing for clarification, could be overly punitive and may overlook genuine qualifications. While accuracy is paramount, a rigid stance without due process might lead to the rejection of a deserving candidate, which is not in line with the university's goal of attracting talented individuals. This approach lacks the nuanced judgment required in admissions. A further incorrect approach, which is to overlook potential misrepresentations to expedite the admissions process, is a severe ethical and regulatory breach. This prioritizes administrative efficiency over accuracy and fairness, potentially admitting individuals who have not met the required standards. This would be a direct violation of the principles of good governance and academic probity expected of educational institutions. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy, fairness, and adherence to regulatory guidelines. This involves establishing clear verification procedures, maintaining a consistent standard for all applicants, and providing a mechanism for addressing discrepancies. The process should be transparent and defensible, ensuring that all decisions are based on objective evidence and ethical considerations. Question 10. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential discrepancy in the submitted academic transcripts of an international applicant for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University Faculty of Engineering. The applicant's previous institution is recognized, but the grading scale appears to differ significantly from the standard Turkish university grading system. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exams? Option A. Advise the applicant to obtain a new transcript from their previous institution with a grading scale that conforms to Turkish university standards. Option B. Immediately reject the application due to the non-standard grading scale, as it cannot be accurately assessed against Turkish university standards. Option C. Forward the applicant's transcripts to the university's international office for an official equivalency assessment and clarification of the grading scale, following established university procedures for international applicants. Option D. Attempt to convert the applicant's grades using a generic online grading scale converter to determine eligibility. The correct answer is B. Immediately reject the application due to the non-standard grading scale, as it cannot be accurately assessed against Turkish university standards. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the applicant to navigate the specific admission regulations of Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University, which are governed by Turkish higher education law and university-specific statutes. The challenge lies in correctly interpreting and applying these regulations to a situation involving a potential discrepancy in submitted documentation, without resorting to assumptions or external, non-applicable rules. Careful judgment is required to ensure adherence to the university's established procedures for handling such matters, thereby upholding the integrity of the admission process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's official admission guidelines and the relevant articles of the Turkish higher education law, Yüksek Kanunu, concerning student admissions and documentation. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the university's internal policies and the overarching legal framework governing higher education in Turkey. It prioritizes seeking clarification from the designated University Admissions Office, which is the authoritative body for interpreting and enforcing these regulations. This ensures that any decision made is based on official interpretations and procedures, preventing arbitrary actions and maintaining fairness. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the application based on a perceived discrepancy, without following the university's established protocol for verification or clarification, is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to the principles of due process and fairness mandated by higher education regulations. It also bypasses the university's internal mechanisms for resolving such issues, potentially leading to an unjust outcome for the applicant and undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach, such as consulting general international university admission, best practices, or regulations from other countries, is also professionally flawed. This violates the strict jurisdictional requirement of the exam, which mandates adherence solely to the regulatory framework of Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University and Turkish law. Such an approach introduces irrelevant standards and could lead to misinterpretations or the application of inappropriate procedures, compromising the integrity of the admission decision. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Identify the specific regulations and policies governing the situation within the defined jurisdiction, Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University and Turkish higher education law. 2. Assess the nature of the discrepancy or issue in light of these regulations. 3. Consult the designated authority or department within the institution responsible for interpreting and enforcing these regulations. 4. Seek clarification and guidance on the appropriate procedure for resolution. 5. Act strictly in accordance with the official guidance and established procedures. 6. Document all steps taken and decisions made. Question 11. Performance analysis shows that a prospective student applying for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam has participated in several academic competitions during their high school years, achieving notable success in some. However, when filling out the application form, the student is unsure whether to list all competitions or only those that directly align with the specific faculty they are applying to, and also considers slightly rephrasing the description of their role in a team project to highlight their individual contributions more prominently. Based on the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's entrance exam regulations, what is the most appropriate course of action for this student? Option A. The student should accurately list all academic competitions and describe their role in the team project factually, without embellishment, adhering strictly to the information provided by the competition organizers or their school. Option B. The student should only list academic competitions that are directly relevant to the faculty they are applying to, and rephrase their team project description to emphasize their individual contributions, even if it slightly alters the original scope of their involvement. Option C. The student should omit any mention of academic competitions that did not result in a first place or equivalent award, and focus solely on their core academic grades, while describing their team project role in a way that maximizes their perceived leadership. Option D. The student should list all academic competitions and describe their team project role in a way that best showcases their skills and achievements, even if it requires some interpretation and elaboration beyond the exact wording of official records. The correct answer is A. The student should accurately list all academic competitions and describe their role in the team project factually, without embellishment, adhering strictly to the information provided by the competition organizers or their school. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a candidate's desire to present their qualifications favorably and the university's need for accurate and verifiable information during the entrance examination process. Maintaining academic integrity and ensuring a fair evaluation for all applicants are paramount. The university's regulations, as stipulated by Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's entrance exam framework, are designed to uphold these principles. The correct approach involves a candidate providing truthful and accurate information regarding their academic background and any relevant achievements. This aligns directly with the ethical obligation of honesty and the regulatory requirement for transparency in the application process. Specifically, Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's entrance exam guidelines likely emphasize the importance of factual representation in all application materials. Failure to do so, even if unintentional, can lead to disqualification or invalidation of the application, as it undermines the trust placed in the applicant and the integrity of the examination system. An incorrect approach would be to embellish or misrepresent academic achievements. This directly violates the principle of honesty and the specific regulations governing the entrance examination, which demand truthful disclosure. Such misrepresentation, regardless of the perceived benefit, constitutes academic misconduct and can have severe consequences, including immediate disqualification and potential future bans from the university. Another incorrect approach would be to omit relevant information that, while not directly false, creates a misleading impression of the candidate's qualifications. This also undermines transparency and can be interpreted as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage, violating the spirit and letter of the university's admission policies. The professional decision-making process for candidates in similar situations should involve a thorough review of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's entrance exam application guidelines. Candidates must critically assess the information they are providing, ensuring it is both accurate and complete. When in doubt about how to present certain information, seeking clarification from the university's admissions office is the most responsible course of action, rather than making assumptions or attempting to present information in a way that could be misconstrued. Question 12. Governance review demonstrates that Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University is facing significant financial pressure, leading to discussions about a potential partnership with a private educational technology firm that offers substantial funding in exchange for access to anonymized student academic performance data for research purposes. University's legal and compliance departments have raised concerns about the adequacy of the firm's data security protocols and the clarity of consent obtained from students regarding the use of their data for such secondary purposes. The university administration is eager to secure the funding quickly, Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University? Option A. Share the data after the firm provides assurances that the data will be anonymized, without conducting an independent verification of their anonymization techniques or security protocols, and without seeking further student consent. Option B. Negotiate a simplified data sharing agreement that focuses solely on the financial benefits, deferring detailed data protection reviews and consent procedures until after the funding is secured. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) in accordance with Law No. 6698 on the protection of personal data (KVKK). Verify the firm's data security measures and ensure explicit student consent is obtained or a clear legal basis for data processing is established before finalizing any agreement. Option D. Proceed with the data sharing agreement immediately to secure the funding, assuming the firm's standard anonymization and security practices are sufficient and that existing enrollment agreements implicitly cover such data usage. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) in accordance with Law No. 6698 on the protection of personal data (KVKK). Verify the firm's data security measures and ensure explicit student consent is obtained or a clear legal basis for data processing is established before finalizing any agreement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term ethical and regulatory obligations concerning student data privacy and security. The pressure to secure funding can lead to overlooking critical compliance requirements, potentially exposing the university to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust from students and stakeholders. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests. The correct approach involves prioritizing the university's commitment to data protection as mandated by Turkish data protection laws, specifically Law No. 6698 on the protection of personal data, KVKK. This approach requires the university to conduct a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, before any data sharing agreement is finalized. This assessment would identify potential risks to student privacy, evaluate the adequacy of the potential partner's security measures, and ensure that all data processing activities align with the principles of lawful processing, data minimization, and purpose limitation as stipulated by KVKK. Furthermore, it necessitates obtaining explicit consent from students for any data sharing beyond the scope of their initial enrollment, or ensuring a legitimate legal basis for such sharing. This upholds the university's ethical duty of care towards its students and ensures compliance with its legal obligations. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the data sharing agreement without a comprehensive DPIA, solely based on the urgency of the funding. This fails to adhere to the risk assessment requirements of KVKK, potentially leading to unauthorized data processing and breaches of student privacy. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that the partner's standard data processing agreements are sufficient without independent verification. This neglects the university's responsibility to ensure that its data is handled appropriately by third parties, a key tenet of KVKK accountability principle. Finally, attempting to bypass the need for student consent by broadly interpreting existing enrollment agreements would be a violation of the explicit consent requirements under KVKK, which mandates clear and informed consent for specific processing purposes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant legal and ethical obligations. This is followed by a thorough risk assessment, considering potential consequences of various actions. The framework then involves exploring all available options, evaluating them against the identified obligations and risks, and selecting the option that best balances stakeholder interests while ensuring full compliance and ethical conduct. In situations of conflict, adherence to legal mandates and ethical principles should always take precedence over immediate financial gains. Question 13. The efficiency study reveals that the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, while effective in assessing academic potential, may inadvertently disadvantage applicants from lower socioeconomic backgrounds due to factors such as access to preparatory resources. In light of this, which of the following actions would be most appropriate for the university administration to consider? Strictly adhering to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exams regulatory framework. Option A. Advise students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds to seek external tutoring services without altering the university's admission policies or the entrance exam structure. Option B. Introduce a separate, unannounced admissions track for students identified as coming from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, offering them a different set of admission criteria. Option C. Implement a quota system that reserves a specific percentage of admissions for students from identified disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, irrespective of their performance on the entrance exam. Option D. Propose amendments to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations to formally incorporate a holistic review process that considers socioeconomic factors alongside standardized test scores, ensuring such amendments are approved through the established governance channels. The correct answer is D. Propose amendments to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations to formally incorporate a holistic review process that considers socioeconomic factors alongside standardized test scores, ensuring such amendments are approved through the established governance channels. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's desire to attract a diverse student body and the need to adhere to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations regarding admission criteria and fairness. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations in a way that promotes equity without compromising the integrity and stated objectives of the entrance examination process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed adjustments are compliant and ethically sound. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations to identify specific provisions that permit or prohibit the consideration of factors beyond standardized test scores for admission. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established legal and regulatory framework governing the university's entrance procedures. By consulting the official regulations, the university can determine if there are authorized mechanisms for considering socioeconomic background or other contextual factors, ensuring that any modifications are implemented within the bounds of the law and university policy. This upholds the principle of fair and transparent admission processes as mandated by the exam's governing framework. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally implement preferential treatment for students from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, without first verifying that such actions are explicitly permitted or provided for within the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations. This could lead to accusations of bias and a violation of the principle of equal opportunity, potentially undermining the credibility of the entrance examination. Another incorrect approach would be to disregard the entrance exam regulations entirely and establish a separate ad hoc admission process for certain groups. This bypasses the established legal and regulatory framework, creating an unfair and non-transparent system that is not in line with the principles of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the governing regulations. This involves consulting the official documentation for the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, seeking clarification from legal counsel or the relevant regulatory bodies if necessary, and engaging in transparent discussions with stakeholders about the implications of any proposed changes. The process should prioritize compliance, fairness, and the integrity of the examination system. Question 14. The control framework reveals that Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's admissions office is experiencing significant delays in processing new student applications due to the manual verification of submitted documents. To address this, a proposal is made to streamline the process by implementing an automated system that relies primarily on self-declared information from applicants, with only a small percentage of applications undergoing manual review for quality control, which approach best balances the need for process optimization with regulatory compliance and data integrity. Option A. Prioritize speed by implementing an automated system that accepts all submitted documents without any verification, relying on the assumption that applicants are truthful and any discovered discrepancies will be handled on a case-by-case basis after enrollment. Option B. Adopt a fully automated system that accepts all applicant data as presented, with a disclaimer requiring applicants to rectify any inaccuracies discovered later, and no proactive verification by the university. Option C. Implement a phased verification system where initial application data is processed through an automated check for completeness and basic consistency, followed by a targeted manual review of applications flagged by the system for anomalies or requiring specific documentation, and a final automated cross-reference with official national databases where available. Option D. Transition to a system where applicants self-declare all necessary information, with a random selection of 5% of applications undergoing a comprehensive manual verification to ensure overall data accuracy. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased verification system where initial application data is processed through an automated check for completeness and basic consistency, followed by a targeted manual review of applications flagged by the system for anomalies or requiring specific documentation, and a final automated cross-reference with official national databases where available. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for efficient student onboarding and the regulatory requirement for thorough data verification. The pressure to expedite processes can lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance. Careful judgment is required to balance operational efficiency with legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves implementing a multi-stage verification process that integrates technology with human oversight. This approach is right because it aligns with the principles of data protection and accuracy mandated by Turkish data protection laws and university regulations. Specifically, it ensures that personal data is collected and processed lawfully, fairly, and transparently, and that appropriate technical and organizational measures are in place to prevent unauthorized access or disclosure. This method upholds the integrity of student records and minimizes the risk of identity fraud or misrepresentation, which are critical concerns for any educational institution. An incorrect approach that relies solely on self-declaration without independent verification fails to meet the due diligence standards expected under data protection regulations. This approach creates a significant risk of inaccurate or fraudulent data entering the university system, potentially leading to enrollment errors, misallocation of resources, and reputational damage. It violates the principle of data accuracy and could expose the university to legal liabilities. Another incorrect approach that involves manual verification of only a small sample of applications is also professionally unacceptable. While it attempts some level of verification, it is insufficient to provide reasonable assurance of data integrity across the entire applicant pool. This selective verification creates a loophole for fraudulent applications to pass through undetected, undermining the overall control framework and potentially leading to the admission of unqualified or ineligible students. It demonstrates a lack of robust risk management and a failure to implement comprehensive data validation procedures as expected by regulatory bodies and university policy. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulations and university policies related to data handling and admissions. 2. Assessing the risks associated with different process designs, including the potential for errors, fraud, and non-compliance. 3. Designing processes that incorporate multiple layers of control and verification, leveraging technology where appropriate, but always including human oversight for critical decisions. 4. Regularly reviewing and updating processes to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes and emerging risks. 5. Fostering a culture of compliance where all staff understand their responsibilities in safeguarding data and upholding academic integrity. Question 15. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance examination process has several stages that are time-consuming and could be streamlined. Considering the university's commitment to a fair and merit-based selection, which of the following approaches to process optimization would best align with regulatory requirements and ethical considerations for university admissions? Option A. Creating a preferential review track for applicants recommended by specific faculty members, allowing their applications to bypass standard review procedures. Option B. Reducing the number of reviewers for each application and increasing the volume of applications each reviewer handles to expedite the overall timeline. Option C. Introducing an automated system that ranks applicants based solely on their high school GPA and standardized test scores, fast-tracking those above a certain threshold for immediate acceptance, Option D. Developing and implementing a multi-stage review process that incorporates both quantitative data and qualitative assessments, with clear criteria for each stage, and ensuring that any automation supports, rather than replaces, human judgment in evaluating diverse applicant profiles. The correct answer is D. Developing and implementing a multi-stage review process that incorporates both quantitative data and qualitative assessments, with clear criteria for each stage, and ensuring that any automation supports, rather than replaces, human judgment in evaluating diverse applicant profiles. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical obligation to provide a fair and transparent admissions process. The pressure to optimize processes can lead to shortcuts that might inadvertently disadvantage certain applicant groups or compromise the integrity of the evaluation. Ensuring that process optimization aligns with the principles of fairness, equity, and adherence to Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University's stated admission criteria is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that enhance speed and accuracy without compromising the qualitative assessment of applicants. This approach is justified by the university's commitment to a merit-based and equitable admissions process, as outlined in its official regulations and guidelines for entrance examinations. Specifically, any process optimization must adhere to the principles of transparency and non-discrimination, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated against the same objective criteria. This aligns with the overarching goal of selecting the most qualified candidates while upholding the university's reputation and legal obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing an automated screening system that prioritizes applicants based solely on a narrow set of quantifiable metrics, such as previous academic scores, without considering qualitative aspects like essays or recommendation letters, would be an ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks overlooking well-rounded candidates and may inadvertently discriminate against applicants from diverse educational backgrounds who may not excel in those specific metrics. It violates the principle of holistic review, which is often implicitly or explicitly required by university admissions policies. Adopting a fast-track review for applicants from specific high schools or regions without a clear, objective, and predefined rationale would also be problematic. This could lead to perceptions of favoritism and unfairness, potentially violating principles of equal opportunity and non-discrimination enshrined in university regulations. Such a practice could also be challenged as arbitrary and lacking in due process for other applicants. Focusing solely on reducing the time taken for each application review by delegating significant decision-making authority to junior administrative staff without adequate training or oversight would be another failure. This undermines the expertise of the admissions committee and could lead to inconsistent or erroneous evaluations, compromising the integrity of the admissions decision and potentially violating university policies regarding the authority for admissions decisions. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with optimizing university entrance exam processes should adopt a structured, data-informed, and ethically grounded approach. The decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the existing process and identifying specific areas for improvement through data analysis and stakeholder feedback. 2. Prioritizing improvements that enhance efficiency and accuracy while upholding fairness, transparency, and adherence to all university regulations and ethical guidelines. 3. Piloting any proposed changes to assess their impact before full implementation. 4. Ensuring that all changes are clearly communicated to relevant parties and that mechanisms for appeal or review remain robust. 5. Continuously monitoring the effectiveness and fairness of the optimized process. Question 16. Process analysis reveals that an applicant to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's Faculty of Engineering has demonstrated exceptional performance in physics and computer science, with high scores in other general subjects. However, their final high school mathematics grade is significantly lower than the typical admitted student, though still passing. The admissions committee is deliberating on how to proceed with this application. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and ethically sound approach for the admissions committee? Option A. Automatically reject the application due to the low mathematics grade, as it falls below the expected academic threshold for engineering programs. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire application, considering their strengths in other areas, potential for improvement, and any explanations for the lower mathematics grade, potentially offering admission with a conditional requirement for remedial mathematics coursework. Option C. Admit the applicant unconditionally, prioritizing their strong performance in related fields and assuming they will catch up in mathematics once enrolled. Option D. Offer the applicant a place in a less mathematically intensive program within the university, suggesting they can transfer to engineering later if they demonstrate proficiency. The correct answer is A. Automatically reject the application due to the low mathematics grade, as it falls below the expected academic threshold for engineering programs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in university admissions where an applicant's academic record, while strong in some areas, shows a significant weakness in a core subject area deemed crucial for the chosen program. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic rigor and program suitability, with the desire to provide opportunities to promising students who may have extenuating circumstances. The admissions committee must navigate the university's stated admission criteria, the specific requirements of the Alanya, Alaaddin Keykubat University's Faculty of Engineering, and ethical considerations regarding fairness and transparency. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including their academic transcripts, personal statement, letters of recommendation, and any supplementary materials. This approach prioritizes understanding the context behind the lower grade in mathematics. It requires the admissions committee to assess whether the applicant demonstrates sufficient aptitude and potential for success in the engineering program, despite this specific deficiency. This aligns with the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University's admission guidelines, which likely emphasize a holistic review process, considering not just grades, but also potential and suitability for the chosen field. The committee should also consider if the applicant has taken any remedial courses or demonstrated improvement in mathematics through other means. This balanced assessment ensures that decisions are based on a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's capabilities and potential, rather than a single data point. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to automatically reject the applicant solely based on the lower mathematics grade, without further investigation. This fails to adhere to a holistic review process, which is a cornerstone of fair admissions. It ignores the possibility of extenuating circumstances, or the applicant's strengths in other areas that might compensate for this weakness. This approach risks overlooking potentially successful candidates and is not in line with the spirit of providing opportunities based on a comprehensive evaluation. Another incorrect approach is to admit the applicant without any conditions or further assessment, despite the significant weakness in a core subject. This would disregard the stated academic requirements of the Faculty of Engineering and could lead to the student struggling significantly in the program, potentially resulting in academic failure and a negative experience for both the student and the university. This approach compromises academic standards and the integrity of the program. A third incorrect approach is to admit the applicant but impose an overly burdensome or irrelevant condition, such as requiring them to complete an advanced calculus course before starting the program. While some form of remediation might be appropriate, the condition should be directly related to addressing the identified weakness in a way that prepares them for the foundational engineering courses. An irrelevant or excessively difficult condition could be seen as punitive rather than supportive, and may not accurately reflect the applicant's actual needs or potential. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and the specific requirements of each program. This involves a thorough review of all application components, seeking to understand the applicant's background and potential. When faced with discrepancies or weaknesses, the next step is to investigate the context, perhaps by seeking clarification from the applicant or their referees. The decision should then be made based on a balanced assessment of the applicant's strengths, weaknesses, and overall suitability for the program, always adhering to principles of fairness, transparency, and academic integrity. If remediation is deemed necessary, it should be clearly defined, relevant, and achievable, with the goal of supporting the student's success. Question 17. Investigation of a scenario where a fellow candidate, during a break in the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam, approaches you and expresses significant anxiety about a specific section of the exam, asking for hints or clarification on topics they believe will be heavily tested. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action to uphold the integrity of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam? Option A. Suggest that the candidate speak to an invigilator about their anxiety without engaging in any discussion about the exam content. Option B. Provide a brief overview of the topics you anticipate will be covered based on your own preparation. Option C. Offer general advice on study techniques without directly referencing any specific exam topics. Option D. Politely decline to discuss any exam content, emphasizing the importance of individual preparation and the rules against discussing the exam. The correct answer is D. Politely decline to discuss any exam content, emphasizing the importance of individual preparation and the rules against discussing the exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding the principles of fairness and honesty that are fundamental to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a student recognizing the ethical boundaries and choosing to rely solely on their own preparation and understanding. This aligns with the core principles of academic integrity as enshrined in the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam regulations, which emphasize fair competition and the prohibition of any form of cheating or academic dishonesty. By refusing to engage in or facilitate such practices, the student upholds the integrity of the examination process and demonstrates respect for the rules. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with unauthorized assistance or information. This directly violates the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's strict rules against collusion and the dissemination of exam content. Such an action would not only compromise the fairness of the exam for all other candidates, but also expose the individual providing assistance to severe disciplinary actions, including potential disqualification and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and proceed with the examination, as if no such conversation occurred, without any form of guidance or intervention. While this might seem like a passive way to avoid direct involvement in unethical behavior, it fails to address the underlying issue and potentially allows a breach of academic integrity to go unchecked. The Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam framework implicitly expects candidates to act responsibly and report or address potential violations when encountered, rather than passively observing. A further incorrect approach would be to offer vague advice that skirts the line of impropriety, such as suggesting general study strategies without directly addressing the student's request for specific exam content. While seemingly less direct than providing answers, this can still be interpreted as an attempt to indirectly assist the student in gaining an unfair advantage, thereby undermining the spirit of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's regulations on academic honesty. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam's regulations regarding academic integrity. Professionals must prioritize ethical conduct and fairness. When faced with a situation that could compromise these principles, the immediate steps should be to 1. Clearly and unequivocally refuse any request that violates the exam's rules. 2. Educate the individual on the importance of academic integrity and the consequences of dishonesty. 3. If appropriate and within the scope of their role, report the incident to the relevant examination authorities for their investigation and action. This systematic approach ensures that ethical standards are maintained and that the integrity of the examination process is protected. Question 18. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a highly talented prospective student who has demonstrated exceptional aptitude in extracurricular activities relevant to their chosen field of study has narrowly missed the minimum score required for direct admission to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam. The admissions committee is aware of the student's potential and is considering ways to accommodate them. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action, strictly adhering to the regulatory framework for university entrance exams in Turkey? Option A. Grant the student an automatic waiver of the minimum score requirement due to their exceptional extracurricular achievements, as deemed sufficient by the admissions committee. Option B. Advise the student to reapply in the next admission cycle, while acknowledging their potential but emphasizing the non-negotiable nature of the minimum score requirement. Option C. Offer the student a place in a preparatory program that is not part of the standard admission pathways, with the understanding that successful completion will guarantee admission in the following academic year. Option D. Recommend the student for a special review by the faculty board to assess their potential for admission based on a holistic evaluation, provided this pathway is explicitly defined within the university's admission regulations and relevant national guidelines. The correct answer is D. Recommend the student for a special review by the faculty board to assess their potential for admission based on a holistic evaluation, provided this pathway is explicitly defined within the university's admission regulations and relevant national guidelines. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in university admissions, balancing the desire to admit promising candidates with the need to adhere strictly to established admission criteria and regulatory frameworks. The Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam has specific guidelines that must be followed to ensure fairness, transparency, and compliance with national educational regulations. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations to individual cases, especially when faced with exceptional circumstances or pressure to deviate. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against all stated admission requirements, including academic performance, required documentation, and any specific criteria outlined by the university and the relevant Turkish Ministry of National Education directives. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established legal and regulatory framework governing university admissions in Turkey. It ensures that all candidates are evaluated on a consistent and objective basis, preventing arbitrary decisions and upholding the integrity of the admission process. This aligns with the principles of administrative law and educational policy, which mandate fair and transparent procedures. An incorrect approach that prioritizes a candidate's perceived potential over documented qualifications would be a failure to comply with the established admission criteria. This could lead to accusations of favoritism or discrimination, undermining the credibility of the university and potentially violating regulations that require objective assessment. Another incorrect approach, which involves seeking an exemption from standard procedures without proper justification or authorization, bypasses the established governance and oversight mechanisms. This demonstrates a disregard for the regulatory framework and could set a dangerous precedent, opening the door to further noncompliance. A third incorrect approach, which involves delaying the decision indefinitely without a clear process for resolution, fails to meet the administrative requirements for timely decision-making and can create uncertainty for all parties involved, potentially violating procedural fairness principles. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the applicable regulations and university policies. This involves meticulously reviewing each application against these established criteria. When faced with ambiguity or exceptional circumstances, the framework dictates seeking clarification from relevant authorities or committees responsible for interpreting and enforcing these regulations, rather than making ad hoc decisions. The process should be documented thoroughly, ensuring accountability and transparency. Question 19. Governance review demonstrates that Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University is facing pressure to meet its enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. A proposal is made to expedite the admission of a cohort of international students who have expressed strong interest but whose academic credentials may not fully meet the standard entry requirements, citing the potential for increased tuition revenue. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university's admissions committee? Option A. Strictly adhere to the established admission criteria for all applicants, ensuring a fair and transparent evaluation process, and explore alternative strategies for meeting enrollment targets that do not compromise academic standards. Option B. Develop a separate, less rigorous admission pathway specifically for international students to boost enrollment numbers, without altering the primary admission criteria for domestic applicants. Option C. Prioritize the admission of international students who demonstrate a higher capacity to pay tuition fees, even if their academic qualifications are slightly below the standard requirements. Option D. Expedite the admission of the interested international students by creating a provisional admission category with relaxed entry requirements, contingent on their future academic performance. The correct answer is A. Strictly adhere to the established admission criteria for all applicants, ensuring a fair and transparent evaluation process, and explore alternative strategies for meeting enrollment targets that do not compromise academic standards. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term integrity of its academic admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt decision-makers to overlook established criteria, potentially compromising the fairness and credibility of the university. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with ethical obligations and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a rigorous adherence to the Alanya, Alaaddin, Keykubat universities' stated admission criteria and the relevant regulations governing higher education admissions in Turkey. This means evaluating all applicants based on the same objective standards, regardless of external pressures or potential financial implications. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant, upholding the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in academic admissions. It aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and its responsibility to the broader educational community. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or relax the established admission criteria for certain applicants to meet enrollment targets. This action would violate the principles of fairness and equal opportunity, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates. Such a deviation from established procedures could also contravene specific regulations set forth by the Turkish Council of Higher Education (YÖRK), or internal university statutes concerning admissions, leading to reputational damage and potential sanctions. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize applicants based on their perceived ability to contribute financially to the university, rather than their academic merit. This creates an unfair system where wealth, rather than academic achievement, becomes a determining factor in admission. This is ethically problematic and likely violates principles of non-discrimination and equal access to education, which are fundamental in Turkish higher education law. A third incorrect approach would be to create a separate, less stringent set of admission criteria for a specific group of applicants without proper justification or regulatory approval. This undermines the transparency and consistency of the admissions process. It could also be seen as discriminatory and would likely be challenged under existing educational regulations. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policy, the relevant national educational laws and regulations, and ethical codes of conduct. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals should: 1. Identify the core principles at stake: fairness, meritocracy, transparency, and regulatory compliance. 2. Consult relevant documentation, university admission regulations, YOMLOUT-K guidelines, and any applicable legal frameworks. 3. Seek advice from appropriate internal bodies, admissions committees, legal counsel, or ethics officers. 4. Prioritize adherence to established procedures and ethical standards over short-term institutional pressures. 5. Document all decisions and the rationale behind them to ensure accountability. Question 20. When evaluating potential process optimizations for the Alanya, Alaaddin, Keykubat University entrance exams admissions, which of the following strategies best balances efficiency improvements with strict adherence to the exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Implementing a new digital platform for application submission that automatically flags incomplete applications based on a predefined checklist, while ensuring all checklist items directly correspond to the exam's stated eligibility criteria and documentation requirements. Option B. Modifying the examination scoring algorithm to allow for a broader range of acceptable answers, thereby increasing the number of successful candidates. Option C. Expediting the review of applicant documents by reducing the number of verification steps, assuming that most applicants will provide accurate information. Option D. Introducing a preliminary interview stage for all applicants to gauge their suitability before they undertake the main examination, without prior amendment to the official exam regulations. Correct answer is A. implementing a new digital platform for application submission that automatically flags incomplete applications based on a predefined checklist, while ensuring all checklist items directly correspond to the exam's stated eligibility criteria and documentation requirements. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's desire to streamline its admissions process and the absolute priority of adhering to the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exams regulatory framework. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that enhance efficiency without compromising the integrity, fairness, or legal compliance of the examination and admissions procedures. Any deviation from established regulations, even with the intention of improvement, risks invalidating the process, leading to legal challenges, reputational damage, and undermining the trust placed in the university's academic standards. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the development and implementation of changes that are demonstrably compliant with the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exam-specific regulations. This includes ensuring that any proposed optimization does not alter the fundamental requirements for candidate eligibility, the examination content or administration, or the criteria for evaluation, as stipulated by the exam's governing laws and guidelines. The regulatory justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of strict adherence to established legal and procedural frameworks, which are designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on perceived efficiency gains without a rigorous assessment of their regulatory implications. For instance, automating the initial screening of applications without verifying that the automated criteria align precisely with the exam's stated eligibility requirements would be a regulatory failure. This could lead to the inadvertent exclusion of eligible candidates or the inclusion of ineligible ones, both of which violate the spirit and letter of the exam's regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to modify the examination scheduling or format to accommodate a larger applicant pool without obtaining explicit approval, or ensuring that such modifications are permissible under the existing regulatory framework. This could be seen as an attempt to circumvent established procedures, potentially compromising the standardization and comparability of the examination results, which is a core regulatory concern. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stage evaluation. First, clearly define the objective of the process optimization. Second, conduct a comprehensive review of the Alanya Alaaddin Keykubat University entrance exams regulatory framework to understand all applicable laws, rules, and guidelines. Third, brainstorm potential optimization strategies, critically assessing each against the identified regulatory requirements. Fourth, consult with legal counsel or regulatory compliance officers to validate the proposed changes. Fifth, pilot any approved changes in a controlled environment to monitor their effectiveness and compliance before full implementation. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring mechanisms to ensure continued adherence to regulations.